Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so today we continue with the book reading from the Great Disciples of the Buddha. The last time we read the final chapter on Venerable Ananda, and today we are going to continue with the story of Venerable Anuruddha. So Venerable Anuruddha was a half-brother of Venerable Ananda. And so that would also make him one of the cousins of the Buddha. Okay, so here it says Anuruddha, master of the divine eye. Okay, early life and ordination. Like Ananda, Anuruddha was a noble of the Sakyan clan and a cousin of the Buddha. He and Ananda were begotten by the same father, the Sakyan prince Amitodana, though their mothers must have been different, as the texts do not refer to the two as brothers and imply that they grew up in different households. Anuruddha's full brother was Mahanama, the Sakyan, and he also had a sister named Rohini. Okay. As a youth from an aristocratic clan, aristocratic means, someone of nobility. Yeah. So Anuruddha was raised in luxury. And the texts describe his early years in the same terms they used to describe the Bodhisattva's upbringing. Anuruddha the Sakyan was delicately nurtured. He had 3 palaces, one for the cold season, one for the hot season, one for the rainy season. Yeah. Even in not so long ago, not as far back as during the Buddha's time, especially in the Eastern cultures, it is quite common where there are, let's say, 3 or 4 seasons that the kings usually have different palaces for different seasons, one for winter, one for summer, something like that. So Anuruddha's family background must have been fairly well off to have had 3 different residences, and they call them palaces. So probably, I'm guessing, very quite, lavish, let's say. Okay. Being waited on in his palace for the 4 months of the rains by female musicians, he did not come down from that palace. So obviously, he, just like similar to how the Buddha was raised, very, very comfortable, well taken care of. They always had entertainment, and there's nothing to worry about. They don't even have to worry about, you know, taking care of the country or the people or whatever. So I'm assuming that their parents or their fathers would be doing that. So they really grew up in lavishness and luxury with really no worries at all. Okay. A charming story recorded in the Dhammapada commentary reveals to us the blissful oblivion and innocence in which Anuruddha grew up. It is said that in his youth, he lived in such luxury that he had never ever heard the phrase, "there isn't any." So that means anything that he wants. Maybe if he suddenly wanted to eat a peach, or maybe he wanted to have something for lunch, or maybe he wanted to get something, I don't know, bow and arrow, pillow, whatever. He would never get an answer that said, "Oh, there isn't any of that." Nati in Pali, nati means we don't have that. for whatever he might want. His desire would immediately be fulfilled. So one could possibly imagine something like today, that would be someone from a very, very rich family. Okay. So one day Anuruddha was playing at at marbles with 5 other Sakyan youths, and he had bad cakes on the result. So the first 3 times he lost and sent home to his mother for cakes. And 3 times his mother promptly supplied them. And when he lost the 4th time, however, and again sent for cakes, his mother replied, "There isn't any cake to send, nati puvam." And since Anuruddha up till then had never before heard the expression, "there isn't any," he assumed that this nati puvam must be a kind of cake. So he sent a man to his mother with a message, "Send me some, there isn't any cakes." So he thought that it's a name of a cake because he's never heard of that expression. So to teach him a lesson, his mother sent him an empty platter. But even then, fortune was still on his side. Owing to his past merits from an earlier life, the gods were determined that Anuruddha should not be disappointed, and thus they filled the empty platter with delicious celestial cakes, cakes from the heavenly realms. So when Anuruddha tasted them, he was so delighted that he repeatedly sent back to his mother for more platters of there isn't any cakes. And by the time each platter arrived, it had been filled with the heavenly delicacies. And thus Anuruddha passed his early years in the joyful pursuit of fleeting pleasures, means pleasures that please the sensual desires, let's put it that way, yeah, fleeting, giving little thought to the meaning and purpose of existence. Excuse me. And the turning point in his life came shortly after his illustrious cousin, the Buddha, visited Kapilavatthu. So this was after the Buddha had gained enlightenment in Bodh Gaya, and then had gone to a deer park and given the first sermon, and then after that decided to travel back to visit Kapilavatthu because it was also to fulfill a promise that he would come back and teach after he had gained enlightenment. And this is what I roughly remember, yeah. So by his example and his teaching, the Buddha had inspired many of his relatives to go forth into the homeless life as monks. And one day, Anuruddha's brother, Mahanama, reflected on the fact that while many distinguished Sakyans had gone forth, no one from their own family had done so. He then approached Anuruddha and told him what he had been thinking, and concluding with an ultimatum. Well, now, either you go forth or I will go forth. So Mahanama was suggesting either one of them, because probably a lot of their rest have done the same. For Anuruddha, such a command must have come as a shock, and he demurred. But I have been delicately nurtured. That means his whole life he has lived in luxury. I'm not able to go forth from home into homelessness. You go forth. So he's kind of saying, I don't think I can leave behind all this wealthy lifestyle. I'm so used to it. I was born into a wealthy lifestyle. I don't know anything other than this way of living. I don't think I can suddenly become a monk. How about you go? Mahanama then vividly described to him the burdens of a householder's life that he would have to shoulder. First, the fields have to be plowed. Then they must be sown. Then water must be let into them. Then the water must be led away. Then the weeds must be dug up. Then the crop must be reaped. Then it must be harvested. Then it must be made into stalks. And then you must have them threshed. Then you must have the straw winnowed. Then you must have the chaff winnowed. Then you must have the chaff sifted. Then you must have it brought in. And the same must be done next year, and the year after that. So I'm guessing here that Mahanama must be probably the older brother who is more, exposed, let's say, to the ways of what's happening in the field and the responsibilities of running, let's say, the family property and all that, whereas Anuruddha probably has been shielded his entire life, never even knew a lot about that. So Anuruddha inquired, when will the work stop? When will an end to the work be discerned? When will we be able to amuse ourselves unconcerned, supplied and furnished with the 5 chords of sensual pleasure? Then his brother Mahanama replied, there is no stop to the work, my dear Anuruddha. No end to the work is ever to be discerned. Even when our fathers and grandfathers passed away, the work was not to be stopped, which is true. The work is passed down through the generations. And by the time he finished speaking, Anuruddha had already made up his mind. You look after what belongs to the household life, brother. I will go forth from home into homelessness. The thought of the endless cycle of strife and toil and the even more vicious cycle of rebirth had awakened in him a sense of urgency. He saw himself bound to struggle again and again through every moment of his life, then to die and take birth elsewhere, over and over in an endless round. And when he saw this, his present life appeared to him insipid and meaningless, and the one hopeful alternative which now seemed increasingly attractive was to follow his cousin into homelessness and struggle to break through the cycle of repeated becoming. Immediately he went to see his mother and asked her for permission to become a monk. She, however, refused, unwilling to be separated from even one of her sons. But when Anuruddha insisted, she told him that if his friend, Prince Bhaddiya, the Sakyan chieftain, would be willing to enter the order, then she would give him her permission. She must have been convinced that Bhaddiya would never give up the privileges of rulership, and that Anuruddha would then choose to remain in the household life with his friend. So here, Prince Bhaddiya is probably someone who, not necessarily a king, so here a chieftain, probably someone like a lord, maybe, someone who has certain authority over, let's say, a certain area. Yeah. And so Anuruddha's mother is probably thinking, Prince Bhaddiya will probably never give up ruling over a certain place. So that would be my benchmark. So Anuruddha next went to Bhaddiya and told him, my ordination depends on yours. Let us go forth together into homelessness. Then Bhaddiya replied, whether it depends on me or not, there should be ordination. I with you. Here he stopped in the middle of the sentence. He had wanted to say, I shall come with you, but broke off because of feelings of regret. Overcome by attachment to worldly power and pleasure, he could only say, go and be ordained according to your wish. So Bhaddiya is a bit torn. So on the one hand, he feels motivated, but on the other hand, he has some attachment still to power and pleasure. So he's a little bit torn. But Anuruddha pleaded with him again and again, "Come, friend, let both of us go forth." And when Bhaddiya saw how earnest his friend was, he softened and said, "Wait, friend, for 7 years. After 7 years, we will both go forth from home into homelessness." But Anuruddha replied, "7 years is too long, friend. I cannot wait for 7 years." By his repeated entreaties, Anuruddha forced Bhaddiya step by step to reduce the delay to 7 days, the time he would need to settle his worldly affairs and install his successor. And he was true to his word, so Anuruddha was free to go with him. And Anuruddha's example induced other Sakyan princes too to follow their great kinsman, the Buddha, and join his fraternity of monks. Thus, when the appointed day arrived, 6 Sakyan princes, together with Upali, the court barber, and an armed escort, set out from their homes. They were the Sakyans, Bhaddiya, Prince Bhaddiya, yeah, Anuruddha, Ananda, Bhagu, Kimbila, and Devadatta. 6 of them. So to avoid arousing suspicion over the purpose of their departure, they left as if they were going to the pleasure gardens for an outing. And having gone a long distance, they then sent the escort back and entered the neighboring principality. There they took off their ornaments, tied them into a bundle, gave them to Upali, and said, "This will be enough for your livelihood. Now return home." But the barber Upali, while already on his way back, stopped and thought, "Wow, the Sakyans are fierce people." It's true. The Sakyans a warrior caste. Yeah. So Upali is thinking, they will think that I have murdered the youths and they might kill me. So he hung the bundle on a tree and he hurried back to join the princes. He told them of his fears and said, "If you, O princes, are going forth into the homeless life, why shouldn't I do the same?" True. He did, Upali, and I think I'm not sure if this book covers Upali, but did we read before? Does anyone remember? Upali was like the foremost in the Vinaya. Let's see if this works. Just going to do a search. Too slow. The chapter before where they talked about after the Buddha passed away and the first sermon. Sorry, the first Buddhist council. No, it should be after the Buddha's parinibbana. There we go. Keeper of the discipline, Upali. So I'm assuming it's the same Upali. Keeper of the discipline means he would have been the foremost in being well-versed in the Vinaya, the rules that the monks and nuns have to abide in. Okay. All right, Venerable Upali. Okay. So, where was it? Okay. So the young Sakyans too thought Upali was right in not going back and allowed him to join them on their way to see the Blessed One. And having come to the master's presence, they asked him for ordination, adding, "We Sakyans are we are a proud lot. We are proud people, Lord. This Upali, the barber, has attended on us for a long time. Please, Lord, Give him ordination first. Since he will then be our senior, we shall have to salute him and do the duties proper to his seniority. Thus, our Sakyan pride will be humble. So it was very good of them to think that way, to ask the Buddha to first ordain Upali before that. So that would make Upali more senior in terms of in the Sangha, as a monk. So then, because Upali was ordained before them, they would have to, in terms of monkhood, they would have to look to Upali as their senior and conduct their manners in that respect. Okay, so in a way to kind of train themselves so that they will forgo and forget that they are still like a proud Sakyan clan, but that they are now all monks. So the Buddha did as requested, and thus these 7 received ordination with Upali as the first. Within 1 year, most of them had achieved some spiritual attainment. Bhaddiya was the first to attain arhatship as one endowed with the 3 true knowledges. Anuruddha acquired the divine eye, Ananda, the fruit of stream entry, and Devadatta, ordinary or mundane supernormal powers. Bhagu, Kimbila, and Upali became arahats later, as did Ananda and Anuruddha. But Devadatta's reckless ambitions and misdeeds led him to hell. So that one we know from all the different stories about Devadatta. Yeah, so that was a short one. Let's see, how long is this section? Also not very long. So let us continue. The struggle for arhatship. So let's look at Anuruddha's journey. So the divine eye is the ability to see beyond the range of the physical eye, extending in Anuruddha's case to a 1,000-fold world system. And this faculty, which we will discuss more fully below, is of a mundane character, one whose acquisition does not necessarily entail that its possessor has gained realization of the Dhamma. So here's very interesting. Doesn't mean that, oh, Anuruddha has a divine eye, doesn't mean that his Dhamma realization, wisdom, it doesn't mean the same. So that's what it means, that this, let's say, supernormal power, divine eye, is of mundane character. That's what it means. So here we also read Devadatta also had developed some mundane supernormal powers, but that does not, it's not an equivalent to realized wisdom from a Dhamma perspective. Okay. So Anuruddha attained the divine eye before he became an arhat. And to reach the heights, he still had to overcome many inner obstacles. And 3 reports in the canon tell of his struggles. So once when the Venerable Anuruddha was living in the eastern bamboo park with 2 friends, his cousin Nandiya and the Sakyan noble Kimbila, so 3 of them, were living in the eastern bamboo park. Then the Buddha visited them and inquired about their progress. And Anuruddha then told him about a difficulty he had experienced in a very sublime meditation he had practicing. He had perceived an inner light and radiance and had a vision of sublime forms. But that light and vision of forms disappeared very soon, and he could not understand the reason. So the Buddha declared that when he was still striving for enlightenment, he too had met the same difficulty, but had discovered how to master. it explained that to experience these subtle states in full and obtain a steady perception of them, one should free oneself from 11 imperfections. The first is uncertainty about the reality of these phenomena and the significance of the inner light, which might easily be taken for a sensory illusion. The second is inattention. One no longer directs one's full attention to the inner light, but disregards it, evaluating it as unremarkable or inessential. The third imperfection is lethargy or drowsiness. The fourth, anxiety and fright, which occurs when threatening images or thoughts arise from the subconscious. And when these imperfections have been mastered, elation may arise, which excites body and mind. And such exaltation is often a habitual reaction to any kind of success. And when that elation has exhausted itself, one may feel emotionally drained and fall into inertia, a heavy passivity of mind. And to overcome it, one makes a very strong effort, which may result in an excess of energy. And on becoming aware of this excess, one relaxes and falls again into sluggish energy. And in such a condition, when mindfulness is weak, strong longing may arise for desirable objects of the celestial or the human world, according to the focusing of the inner light which had been widened in its range. So this longing will reach out to a great variety of objects and thus lead to another imperfection, a large diversity of perceptions, be it on the celestial or human plane. And having become dissatisfied with this great diversity of forms, one chooses to contemplate on one of them, be it of a desirable or undesirable nature. And concentrating intensely on a chosen object will lead to the 11th imperfection, the excessive meditating on these forms. So here, and also here, so addressing Anuruddha and his two companions, the Buddha does describe vividly from his own experience the 11 imperfections that may arise in the meditative perception of forms, of pure forms, and explain how to overcome them. So that's in Majjhima Nikaya, number 128. But in the simplest of explanations on how to overcome, really, if we want to simplify it all, whatever phenomena that arises, really we need to practice the 6 R's and sharpen our mindfulness more and more. So when we were reading through, you see through the explanations, right? The mind goes, it bounces back and forth. So when it perceives some kind of sensory illusion or something that attracts its attention, right? If the mindfulness is not sharp enough to be able to realize that, okay, it's just another phenomena, and then be sharp enough to apply the 3 characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta, that it is whatever phenomenon that arises is impermanent, it's not satisfactory, and it's impersonal in nature. If we are mindfully sharp and aware enough to see, because it's very quick sometimes, these phenomena, whatever it is. Here, it's using the example of form or inner light, But it could be we could come into contact with, well, from a logic point of view, any one of through the sense doors. So whether it's in form, I'm assuming that light or form is probably the more common one, but it could be in terms of sound as well. And then after that, the explanation is what the mind bounces between too much energy, too little energy, too much energy, too little energy. And then it where was it? Then it comes to a longing. That means, again, clinging. Yeah. So when the mind has gone that far, then we know that the mind has lost the sharp mindfulness and has been drawn into that form. So here, concentrating intensely means it has gone one-pointed. One-pointed, and then will lead to the excessive meditation on this form. So by constantly practicing in the 6 hours, the 6 hours will help us sharpen our mindfulness and will help us steer ourselves away from falling into this kind of the so-called trap of the mind. Let's say it's not a bad thing, it's just the tendency of the mind. Because of habitual tendencies, we get drawn into something and say, oh, well, so it's like, and it happens very quick. So before you know it, if the mindfulness isn't sharp enough, you're drawn into it already before you even know it. But if the mindfulness is sharp enough to see any sort of tendency that arises, goes into that kind of habitual tendency, catches it, goes 6R. Never mind. Yeah, release, relax, smile, return to object of meditation. Yeah. So, so the Buddha was just explaining this. Yeah. So when Anuruddha had perfected himself more and more in the jhanas and in those refined meditative perceptions, he one day went to see Venerable Sariputta and said, "Friend Sariputta," because this was at a time where they were all addressing each other as friend instead of Venerable Sir. Okay, and the earlier disciples. "Friend Sariputta, with the divine eye that is purified, transcending human sight, I can see the thousandfold world system. Firm is my energy, unremitting. My mindfulness is alert and unconfused. The body is tranquil and unperturbed. My mind is concentrated and one-pointed. And yet my mind is not freed from the cankers, not freed from clinging." And thereupon Sariputta replied, "Friend Anuruddha, that you think thus of your divine eye, this is conceit in you." So what Sariputta is pointing out to Anuruddha here is saying that the very fact that you're telling me, that you're saying, I can see thousands of world systems and my mindfulness is very sharp and my body is very calm, the fact that you're telling me this, there is conceit in you, there is pride in you, there is this I in you. Okay, so Sariputta is very sharp. And obviously he, in terms of wisdom, is second only to the Buddha. So he knows how to answer Anuruddha in a way that will guide him as well. Okay. "Friend Anuruddha, that you think thus of your divine eye, this is conceit in you. That you think thus of your firm energy, your alert mindfulness, your unperturbed body, and your concentrated mind, this is restlessness in you. That you think of your mind not being freed from the cankers, this is worrying in you. It would be good indeed if you would abandon these 3 states of mind and, paying no attention to them, direct your mind to the deathless element, Nibbana." So what Sariputta is trying to tell Venerable Anuruddha is saying, all these thoughts that you just mentioned, don't pay attention to them, because the thought itself is igniting this pride, this restlessness, this worry, which are hindrances themselves. So Sariputta is saying, don't pay any attention to the hindrances. It is the hindrances that are your obstacles to your practice. Don't pay any attention to these thoughts, to these hindrances. Just direct your mind back to the practice itself. So having heard Sariputta's advice, Anuruddha again resorted to solitude and earnestly applied himself to the removal of those three obstructions within his mind. And sometime later, Anuruddha was living in the country of the Chetya people in the eastern bamboo grove. And there in his contemplations, it occurred to him that there were 7 thoughts that should be cherished by a truly great man. This Dhamma is for one with few wishes, not for one with many wishes. This Dhamma is for one who is content, not for one who is discontent. This Dhamma is for one bent on seclusion, not for one who is gregarious. This Dhamma is for one who is energetic, not for one who is lazy. This Dhamma is for one who is mindful, not for one who is confused. And this Dhamma is for one who is concentrated or collected. Yeah, we're talking about collectedness of mind, not for one who is without collectedness of mind. This Dhamma is for one who is wise, not for one who is dull-witted. Dull-witted means not sharp in the mind, let's put it that way. Yeah. So when the Buddha perceived in his own mind the thoughts that had arisen in Anuruddha's mind, he appeared before him in a mind-made body and applauded him. So the Buddha used his psychic ability to appear before Anuruddha and say, "Good, Anuruddha, good. You have well considered 7 thoughts of a great man. You may now also consider this 8th thought of a great man. This Dhamma is for one who inclines to the non-diffuse, who delights in the non-diffuse, not for one who inclines to worldly diffuseness and delights in it." So here, this Dhamma is for one who inclines, who not for one who inclines to worldly diffuseness. So, remember last week where Dr. Madhusudanji read through the Sutta Nipata 3.12 on the meditation on the pairs or the, twofolds. Yeah. And when we went through the sutta, there were sections that said that, contemplating on, for those that are not wise, the kind of happiness that they think will make them happy, then those that are wise understand that it is not that truly brings happiness. So similar in this manner. Yeah. So the Buddha then said that when Anuruddha contemplates these 8 thoughts, he would be able to attain at will the 4 meditative absorptions, 4 jhanas. He would then no longer be affected by worldly conditions, but would regard the 4 simple requisites of a monk's life, robes, alms, food, shelter, and medicines, in the same way as a layperson would enjoy luxuries. And such simple living would make his mind joyous and unperturbed and thus be helpful to his attainment of Nibbana. And in parting, the Buddha advised Anuruddha to stay on at the eastern bamboo grove. And Anuruddha did so, and during that same rainy season, he attained the consummation of his striving, arhatship, the undefiled liberation of the mind. At the hour of his attainment, the Venerable Anuruddha uttered the following verses in which he expresses his gratitude to the Master for helping him bring his spiritual work to completion. Having understood my mind's intention, the unsurpassed teacher in the world came to me by psychic power in the vehicle of a mind-made body. When the intention arose in me, then he gave me a further teaching. The Buddha who delights in the non-diffuse gave me instructions on the non-diffuse. Having understood his Dhamma, I dwelt delighting in his teaching. The three knowledges have been attained. The Buddha's teaching has been done. Okay, I'll just very quickly check what, just in case I understood it wrong. Let's go to see if we can find out what worldly diffuseness means. Let's ask Google. Okay, right. So diffuseness, Oxford Learner's Dictionary. Okay, so what does Oxford Learner's Dictionary say? What is diffuseness? Diffuseness. It's a noun. Where did it go? Oops. Oops. So diffuseness is a noun. It's a fact of being not clear or easy to understand. So worldly things that are not clear, not easy to understand. Basically, the worldly vibrations that are going on. So this Dhamma is for one who inclines to the non-diffuse, stable, clear, easy to understand. The Dhamma is simple, clear, easy to understand, not inclined to things that are in the world that are complicated, let's put it that way, not easy to understand. So funnily enough, when we really break down the Dhamma, it is simple, easy to understand. Doesn't mean that it's easy to achieve. Okay, once we practice and overcome all our obstacles, hindrances, etc., then it breaks down. Okay, so we shall pause here, and then the next reading we shall go into Anuruddha's spiritual path. Anyone has any take on today's reading? Or any general comments or questions for today? No? Okay. Okay.
It is a beautiful reading. Thank you very much. I guess we will continue this next Sunday.
We'll see. I haven't seen anyone put a block on next Sunday just yet. So keep an eye on the WhatsApp chat group. We'll see.
Yeah.
If there's no one available, then we can continue, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, and you would record them, won't you? I think most of us will be at a retreat from Friday.
Yeah, no
This
worries.
is a beautiful reading. Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, no worries at all. We will record as usual. Every session we record, so feel free to be at ease. We will record, and then after your retreat, you can always listen back to the recording on YouTube. I hope you all have a good retreat. Enjoy the retreat. I hope the weather will be kind, so that the retreat conditions will be comfortable as well. Okay, So then let us share merits together. I will share the screen. Okay, so let us share the merits together after this book reading. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share these merits that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu. Okay, I wish you a good week ahead, and also those of you going on retreats, a good retreat, fulfilling one. Okay, have a happy, enjoyable week ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.